Then I will introduce the next presenters. Next presenter is Harufumi TAMAZAWA. His title is Digital Archives in Japan, an online lecture in university about history of astronomy. You also have a 20 minutes talk. So please start your presentation. Can you share your screen?
Okay. Can you see my presentation file?
Yes, it's okay. I can see.
Okay.
So please go ahead.
Okay. Hello everyone. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon in Japan. Now it is 12 o'clock. So for me and for chair, this is lunchtime session. So please relax. I introduce my test case analysis of digital archive usage in Japan and online lecture in university about history of astronomy. Many of you, I believe, think it is important to educate the history of astronomy in education of astronomy. National Academy in Japan, Science Council of Japan, opened the reference standards for curriculum organization for pre-assurance by field of university education, physics and astronomy field. Not only mechanics or waves, quantum mechanics and so on, but also history of physics concept for formation are important for education of physics and astronomy. And in astronomy, and in especially historical structure of evolution of the university, origin of elements and substance, and transition of the view of the universe is important. This is explain the history of the formation of physics concept, explain why relativity and quantum mechanics are needed. In astronomy, explain the historical background of the birth of astronomy, such as the calendar around the ancient civilization, the major financial revolution from the geocentric theory to the heliocentric theory, and transition of modern view of the universe based on the observation facts brought about the invention of telescope is important. So this is conference hands-on universe session. So what is a hands-on material about history of astronomy? History of astronomy is usually taught in all-time classroom lecture. So what the teaching hands-on material of history of astronomy? After pandemic, last year, lectures in university is changed to online. Yes. So what are the teaching material of astronomy, history of astronomy in online lecture? Especially what are the teaching material of transition of the view of the universe? So I quickly check the report or paper about teaching material of the history of astronomy in Japan case. So there is a three types of material that is reproduct, remake, and reuse. First is reproduction of historical observation methods, including calculation. The second is remake, the creation of past observation instruments, simple depth telescope, and so on. The third type is visiting and using such as astronomical heritage and using old real telescope. But to think the transition of the view of the universe is not to make the material approach to cultural astronomy, not only history of astronomy, but also parallel astronomy, archaeastronomy, astronomy, and folklore of astronomy approach is important. Another point is a bridge of science studies and philosophy of science. I think it's useful to use a digital archive system is important. Japan Search is the name of a meta database system of Japanese creation. Many of you can use a virtual repository in research or education of astronomy. Japan Search is a virtual repository in the field of archive study in Japan. Yes, the URL is in chat. So Japan Search is a national cross-section interface portal site that allows us to search metadata of various Japanese contents at once and in cooperation with digital archives in various fields. Metadata awarded by Japan Search provided in a format that is easy to use other than search also. Search also serves as a foundation to promote the utilization of content. So, this is an example of the usage in a university lecture in the field of curation study. It's important of usage of digital archive, not inside. So it is limited if it is pasted, material is pasted on slide is limited. So students or participants of lectures can see everything if usage of digital archive itself. So because ready to expand at hand. Another point is copyright. Lecturers or teachers want to avoid failures where it's unclear where the failures used for lesson materials came from. So it is important to use digital archive itself. So this is an introduction test case I tried search and check drawing about solar system. In my case, the lecture type is on-demand type, providing pre-recording material. So students should check video and homework report. In my short homework, they check students check search 閉店理図会。閉店理図会 was written by Iwahashi Zenbei. Iwahashi Zenbei is the first craft maker of lens telescope in Japan. Iwahashi Zenbei is at first the craft worker of eyeglass. So he studied astronomy and changed his job as a craft worker of lens type telescope. So, 閉店実会 is a textbook by astronomy. So, students search 閉店実会 using Japan Search and look at figure about solar system and pointed out that the difference from the current way of thinking of the solar system and figures, and ask them to think what caused the difference. It's a demonstration. First, enter the keyword and check the open case in the web and open the original, open to access the original database. Japan Search is metadata database. So to see the original data, we go to the original database. Here's an original database. This is the case of Art Research Center, and mainly NIJL database. NIJL is National Institute for Japanese Literature. And quick, we can see the material. I changed the slide to Firefox browser. Here you can see the Japan Search in Firefox browser? 言えますかね。はい。So, let me demonstration the Japan search. If can you see the Firefox browser in Japan search?
I can see just your
Yeah.
typing the hating Gizuka in
Okay.
Japanese.
Yeah. If you're interested in this system, so please use the together. But many of you is not easy to write the kanji Japanese and Chinese character. So please copy and paste at that time. Okay. So this is and check the open window web content. There are 6 items. So just click the content name and click dark blue button. So this is the original database and check this button. Okay. You can see the Heiten image like this. Many of modern Japanese can't read old size Japanese handwriting character with a kuzushiji because we now don't use a kuzushiji, but we can take a figure. Oh, we can check the solar system figure in this book. I go back to presentation file. Yeah. The background is the two different and difficult background about this difference. First is how did the heliocentric theory flow into Japan? During the Edo period is 70s, 80s, and early half 19th century in Japan. In Edo period, foreign books were severely restricted. The exception in via the Netherlands and China. Differences occur due to knowledge, time difference, translation, and so on. In the case of the text from China, many of texts include drawing solar system, but this figure is a Ptolemaic like type or like figure. Another case is from Netherlands in directory. This is a simple heliocentric theory type figure. Another difficult point is about science studies. Many of you know in paradigm theory is a conversion from a geocentric theory to the heliocentric theory is often treated as a subject. That is normal science to the extraordinary research and as a new paradigm. So the timing of lecture is after lunar eclipse. So we see the page about eclipse. We can see the solar geocentric type figure. I checked the text document written by students. Many students don't explain that it's simple geocentric time, but students say the moon, sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are rotating around the Earth. and Venus and Mercury and rotating around the Sun. About 10% of students made the comparison that take Brian and others. So it's a little difficult question. So there's a tendency of amount. The importance is there's a tendency of amount of description. The number or character of the mini report to be larger than other lesson contents. So it's present that many students were interested in the task. This is the last slide. Using digital archives are useful lecture of history of astronomy. Because students can see it's ready to expand at hand. So this archives virtual hands-on material for students. Opportunity for students to think independently in need, even in lecture on the history of astronomy. So seeing original historical documents is one of the opportunities. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this is very interesting for all the participants who I think you all have a rare chance to see the Japanese classical text. And so maybe you have any questions for this presentation. Is there anyone have a question? From the chair, I have one question. So
yeah.
The students who are running the modern or contemporary science theme, the running history of science, astronomy, especially with such a actual, real historical text, what kind of purpose do you have? And can you find any effects that you not expected before? ごめんね、実際科学をやっている学生にとって歴史的文化を読むって結構ギョッとすると思うんですけど、どういう効果を最初目指しているのかっていうのと、なんか意外な予想しなかった反応とかあればぜひ教えてほしいなと思いまして。
はい。maybe in my case, the main target many of students is literature or law faculty. So the number of science or faculty, technology faculty is small, but many of students have not seen the Japanese old type textbook, even they are literature faculty students. So it's a new experience. 基本的には大学1年生が対象だったので、そもそもそういうのに見たことが文系であっても少ないということですね。2つ目何でしたっけ？
予想外の反応、つまりこういうことを知ってほしい以外に何か、こういう反応するんだっていうのが、is there any unexpected or unforeseen reaction or effect?
Yeah, I explained Popper or Kuhn's theory, but a small number of students discuss other theories about science studies, like Lakatoshu and so on. So they study in their hand. 要は自分で勝手にやり始めた子がたまにいました。
なるほど。ありがとうございます。Then I think this may be a final question. So Handa-san is raising your hand, so please make a question.
Okay, it might be some duplication of the previous Naito-san's question, but it's in your opinion, Tamazawa-san, what is the most important or the most important key or the most important purpose to run history for students? Science history student.
Yeah, for science student.
Not only for science, science student.
Yeah.
I mean the usually in Japan the history means say political history or some battle history, but it's very little respect to the science or technology history.
Yeah.
So how do you think, or what is most important key to run or to study the science history for all students?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that science evolution is not simple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for example, from geocentric to heliocentric, many anomaly research occur and disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And in the viewpoint of observation and calculation, the geocentric theory is not centric is not weak in the level of observation. 要は、あれだ。誤差の計算でいうと、ジオセントリックの方が強いわけではないわけですよね。
いやいや。
終点。はい。そこの
事実を知る。Say last year or a few years ago, the NHK TV program broadcasted about how precise the geocentric model using the planetary. So that is very impressive. So based on the observation, the Tycho's model is very impressive for me. So in the classical astronomical history, Tycho model is discarded because that is a hybrid of the geocentric and the heliocentric models. But I once read the Tycho, why Tycho thinking about that. The completely geocentric model is too complex. So he changed to the heliocentric, but based on his observations.
Thank you, Handa-san. It is
there is no chance.
Excited discussion, but it is already over the schedule. So
okay, sorry.
Conclude if you have a final comment in one short sentence. I'm really interested in your
I think the science history and the technology history is very important for all persons. I completely agree with you about that. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Tamazawa-san, and thank you, Handa-san.